Alrighty, tons of free information today. We're really excited. We're getting a lot of new clients today. It's very easy to access. You can see in the top left-hand corner, just click on our frequently asked questions, our FAQ. If you have any problems, how to access, very easy to purchase at offshoreinsiders.com. Off a 6-0 sweep boss in the TNT game of the month. We're now 42-17 with name plays. I'm just on fire and everything. College football total off for Friday. 5 NBA led by a wise guy play. 2 college basketball. It's all at offshoreinsiders.com. We got a lot more coming tomorrow. All right, let's take a look at your college football for tonight. Central Florida and Tulsa. Central Florida is laying 17, a total of 68.5. This opened up at 16 and 70.5. UCF, 69% of bets, 54% of the money is on them. The over has 64% of the bets and 75% of the money. UCF has dropped 5 of 6 against the spread. Style points motivations long gone. You know, remember at one time we thought, yeah, sure, they could perhaps go undefeated again. They could be the number one team and at least get a guaranteed, the number one of the non-Power 5 teams, that is. Not the number one team, but the number one of the non-Power 5 teams, and they could get a New Year's Day bowl. All that's gone, so any motivation to run up the score is very much gone. Tulsa's 2-7 straight up, but yet they've covered 3 of their last 5. Tulsa, they lost to SMU, and they lost to Memphis by a combined 7 points. But, you know, they've played some good opponents this year. They've lost to Michigan State, Oklahoma State, and Cincinnati. So, as I like to say, they've definitely played a baptism by fire schedule. You know, UCF, they've got a good offensive line and 4 running backs, but that means, you know, if they get a fourth quarter lead, they can protect it, run some time off of the clock. This, years ago, those of you who've been with me for a long time used to probably remember what I would call my dichotomous straight up and ATS theory. And what this means is if a team is winning but not covering, or conversely, if they're losing, but they are covering, you just ride the ATS streak, because that's how to isolate overvalued and undervalued teams. And you almost really have a battle of 2 of those. UCF, they're winning for the most part, but they're not covering. Tulsa, they're not winning, but they are covering. Like I said, 2-7 straight up, but they're 3-2 their last 5. Tulsa has played their best against the best this year. I'm going to go with Tulsa plus the 17. Washington against Oregon State. Washington's laying 10.5 on the road. 65.5 is the total. Opened up at 9.5 and 65. 57% of the bets are on the road favorite, and that's fairly low for road favorites because the public likes a better road favorite. And I now have an even 50-50 split on the money. On the money when it comes to the total. 50% on the over, 50% on the under. 67. No, I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. 50% of the money, it is split on this side. 50% of the money is on Washington. 50% is on Oregon State. And again, 57% of the money on Washington. Now let's get to the total. We've got 57% of the bets are on the over, 86% of the money. Now let's go to our sharp report and see if that's justified. Fade home underdogs off of the win, in which they had 550 or more total yards in their previous game, is 87 and 57 for 60%. That says to go with Washington. And, you know, you're talking about, again, that does make sense. We're using the odds makers' knowledge against them. The odds makers are telling you, for Oregon State to have a chance in this game, they've got to have a great offensive effort. And when that happens, when a team has to have a spectacular offensive effort just to cover, the bar is set pretty high, and they usually don't. Now, Washington, their top 2 tacklers are in the secondary. That's not good when you're playing a quality team, but what it does mean is that a team like Oregon State, you know, they're less likely to beat you with the big play, and you're not going to have some fluke touchdowns. Home teams with 2 or fewer turnovers in game 8 or higher are a go against at 58 and 47. That would favor Washington. What that tells you that, look, Oregon State, they've been pretty fortunate this year. And it's tough to match good fortune. I always said that turnovers is more of a lag indicator, not a lead indicator. So when you have a big discrepancy in the two teams as far as turnovers are concerned, for the most part in every sport, go with the worst turnover team because that's tough to maintain that advantage. Oregon State's been overpowered. They were overpowered this year by Utah's physicality. Washington, they play a very physical game themselves. Only one wide receiver has gotten over 100 yards receiving to Washington this year. And really for Oregon State to have a chance, Isaiah Hodges has to have a big game. But Washington hasn't given up a lot of big games to wide receivers this year. Now, one thing that does worry me about this, I am going to go with Washington minus the 10 or minus the 10.5 now. OSU, we always say you cannot manufacture emotion. Well, OSU needs 2 wins in their Final Four to become bowl eligible. Oregon State, they're not, they don't go bowling all that often. So this is going to be a pretty raucous home crowd on a national TV weeknight game. I can definitely see Oregon State with a bigger than usual home advantage. But then again, Oregon State, they're no longer sneaking up on teams. They're not quite, they haven't quite gone from the 100 to the 100, but they're not going to sneak up on anybody anymore. So all in all, do like Washington minus the 10. Remember, Joe Duffy's Picks, we do have a college football total for tonight. We got a bunch of NBA college basketball, including a wise guy playing the NBA. OffshoreInsiders.com. All right, some college basketball. Baylor and Washington. Baylor is laying 5.5. Look, Baylor is a game under the belt. Washington making their debut. I did look up the old adage. A lot of times you'll hear people tell you that it's good if a team has one game under their belt. They're better than the team that doesn't have any games. The old adage, a team improves the most from game 1 to game 2. From a handicapping standpoint, my database says that really hasn't held up in any sport, and it usually, happens a lot more in college basketball and college football. Huskies, they lost 4 seniors, plus Jalen Noel left early. Those 5 players accounted for 80% of their offense. Baylor with 9 players with 26 or more games experience. It's my experience that the team that does return more talent isn't quite as great of a play as some people may think. Still, this is one of those games that were played later in the year. You could see how Washington's a team that's probably going to get better as the year goes on. Baylor, though, should come out of the gate pretty quickly. I like Baylor here. Arizona State and Colorado. This game is being played in Shanghai, China. Colorado has most players back from a 22-13 team. They're picked second in the Pac-12, so they are a good team. This is going to be a nice point guard battle, and I know there are a lot of sharps out there. They love teams with good point guards. Both of these teams have good point guards. Wouldn't be surprised if some sharp money, though, is on the over. Now, Colorado, they got the guy right last year. He played with a hurt shoulder, yet he still averaged 13 points, 4.9 rebounds, 4.8 assists. He had off-season surgery, but enters this season completely healthy. And Romello Wright is questionable for ASU. He averages 9.9 points per game, 6.4 rebounds. ASU lost the Pac-12's top rebounder, Zylan Cheatham, averages 10.3 rebounds per game. ASU, though, will have an improved Rob Edwards following minor offseason surgery. He's going to be healthier this year. He averaged 11.1 points per game. I'm going to go with ASU as my pick here. Here's some weather conditions to be aware of, and these totals are probably going to drop. This is really right about the time where people start paying attention to weather conditions. Purdue Northwestern, Louisville, Miami, Florida, and Florida International, Florida Atlantic, all with 16-mile-per-hour winds. So again, at Northwestern, at Miami of Florida, and at Florida Atlantic. Nothing really in the NFL screams out, even though, usually come November, weather conditions become even more important. 50% sign-up bonus at mybookie.ag if you use the promo code Duffy, D-U-F-F-Y, the biggest bonus in the industry. It's also your way of showing support for the free picks and the podcast. We'll give it to you all the time. Set up an account, make a deposit. You'll get the biggest sign-up bonus allowed. 50% is the current biggest sign-up bonus in the industry. mybookie.ag. Use the promo code Duffy, D-U-F-F-Y, to get that big bonus. Some ATS trends, Central Florida and Tulsa. Central Florida 7-3 on the road, 1-5 overall. Tulsa 18-7 following an ATS loss. Favorites covered 7 of 10 in this series. Washington and Oregon State. Washington 4-9 on the road. Oregon State 6-1 overall, 2-7 at home. Washington is 5-2 in the series. OffshoreInsiders.com. All the winners all weekend long, baby.